Can you hear me?
Live on StreamYard.
Yeah, I hear
And I
we're
have my
here.
headphones in.
Christy Premier joined, so I'm waving at you, but it didn't say you want to go live as well.
I hear we're here.
Uh-oh.
Christy Premier joined, so I'm waving at you, but it didn't say you want to go
Just-
live as well.
Just came through and I clicked it, Christy, so you should be joining us on IG. All right, everybody. We are excited to be here. There she is, that favorite lady.
Hello.
We are live on another KCN, Kick-Ass Couples Nation Nooner. Who does not love a nooner in the middle of the day? Man, we got lots of people joining. Hello, everybody. I get to hang out with Christy Premier. This is, not only is she a Kick-Ass Couples Nation elite relationship coach, she does women empowerment. She's a speaker. She's an author. She has her TV show. Man, I hornswoggled her somehow to hang out with us here doing our live today. But we are going to have some fun today because our topic today on Kick-Ass Couples Nation Nooner is, what do you do when your husband, your wife, or your partner will not listen? That is isn't that frustrating, Christy? Have you ever felt with Anthony, you're talking to him and you're like, hello, I'm talking to you? Because he always listens to you, doesn't he, Christy?
Always. I never say earth to Anthony.
Isn't that frustrating? Oh my gosh. Kim is usually pretty intent in listening to me, I've got to say. But, communication is such an important skill. In fact, it's one of our 3 C's, one of our foundational skills at Kick-Ass Couples Nation. Communication, we start off with commitment is the first, then communication, and then conflict resolution. And do you feel like your partner listens to you? Many people's answer is no. And if that's your answer, you are not alone. So if you don't feel like they're listening, what can you do? University of Tech City did some research, and they found that men and women speak about 16,000 words a day. Women tend to focus and approach things differently, and they use body language differently. And I want to do a little dispel here. There's an old notion in a comment that women speak 3 or 4 times as more words than men do. And that's kind of a bogus study. So I'm not going to go into and say men use a few words and women use a lot, but men and women do communicate differently. And understanding those differences is really kind of important. Because a lot of couple feels like they're talking, but they're not feeling they're connecting or being heard and on the same page. And Christy, communication is not just about words, is it?
Absolutely not. I mean, we've got communication through our body language, through our eyes, our facial expressions. It's interesting because there's always the speaking part of it, the body language part of it, and then the active listening part of it, which is also linked with healthy communication.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, tone is important when we're communicating with our partner, body language, and even facial expression. If all you could see was a picture of your spouse's, your partner's face when they speak to you and you weren't hearing the words, you could probably intuit an awful lot about what they're saying and feeling, and speed of speech and diction, how fast, how slow, how loud. Timing, right? When you choose to say something, and also the place. Where are you when you're having a conversation? Are you in the bedroom? Are you in the bathroom? Are you on the couch next to each other? Is it the dinner table? So there's all kinds of stuff really that swirls around communication. So let's kind of jump in a little bit. I want to talk, the first key point I really want to get to, Christy, is the first type of not listening, meaning not paying attention, like not actually knowing that you are speaking. So how do we make sure, how do we get our partner's attention? What's the best way for us to think about doing that?
Well, I'm a firm believer that you get what you put out. So I always say demonstrate with your own behavior what you're wanting and needing from your partner. That's a really good place to start.
Okay.
And also communicating, speaking up, asserting what you need. A lot of times we've been conditioned that we're in a room together, but we're on our phones, or we're like off in la la land thinking about maybe we have bills to pay, maybe we have a child we're worried about, or maybe we're just thinking about our dream life. And it's very important that you're mindful in the moment. So more than just being present, literally being mindful and saying, listen, you've got my attention. You've said what
Right.
you need from me. You have my attention. So I'm practicing that, right?
I think you mentioned something, and I want to kind of go back to that is distractions. We all have these devices, right? And whether if I'm in a conversation with my wife, if I'm out to dinner, if we're on a date, I silence my phone, right? Or if she walks in the room and music is playing, the TV's on. If there's a distraction, you've got to eliminate the distraction, first of all, because you don't want to multitask with your partner. And that's your computer as well. Oh, I'm just typing in my email. Yeah. And I keep on doing what I'm doing. If there's a conversation that she wants to have or I want to have, I make sure that I've eliminated the distractions, that we've got good eye contact, eye to eye, and I'm ready to listen and hear what she's saying. So I think eliminating distractions is huge. And if we're going to have a conversation, Christy, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I need to talk to you about something. Is now a good time? Because just because it's heavy on my agenda doesn't mean it's heavy on hers. And so if it's not a good time for her to have a deep conversation, she's got a deadline to meet, she's trying to get something taken care of, you want to make sure that timing is critical and that it's a good time to have a deep or important conversation. And if it's not, saying, hey, let me know when you've got 5 minutes, 10 minutes, because I'd like to talk to you about something.
Yeah, and I always encourage my clients to practice HALT. A lot of people use HALT for food or for overcoming emotional eating, but HALT, if you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, those are not opportunities to be engaging in deep, important conversations with your partner. Those are opportunities to rest, express your emotions in a healthy way, find something to do, and eat something so your blood sugar is okay. So when we are approaching our partner, especially for important conversations that are
Sure.
important to us, we do need to say, hey, do you have time right now to explore XYZ, whatever the topic might be? Because if we're just dumping on our partner, how can we expect them to receive what we're saying, and be present with that? Maybe they're doing their own thing or dealing with their own thing, and that respect builds healthy communication.
Yeah, I mean, there's good warm-up phrases. You could say something like, I need, right? If you let your partner know by starting off, I need, or can you please, or it would help me greatly if. Those are all soft startups, which should tell your partner, hey, you got to focus on me for a minute because we're going to have some communication, right? And let's talk a little bit about the benefits. What are the benefits about having connected, meaningful communication with your partner? It's not a job or a task, right? If we approach it that way, we think we're kind of missing the boat.
Yeah, well, one of the benefits is a healthy sex life. Let's just put that out there. The other benefit is feeling secure and safe. A third benefit is, you know, building that connection muscle between you and your partner and knowing there's a time to speak, there's a time to listen, and there's a time just to be. So the more you're connecting and communicating respectfully, every area of your relationship and even your life is going to improve.
Right, no doubt. I think it really comes down to a big buzzword for Kick-Ass Couples Nation is prioritization.
Yeah.
And are you prioritizing your partner above everything else? There's only that divine or that heavenly connection is more important than the one with your partner, but your partner should be your number one human person relationship. And if it's not, it should be, or how can it be? And here's a question I want to throw out. If you're not married, if you're married, you're obviously in a relationship. But if you're not married and you're dating somebody, I want you to kind of ask yourself this question. Am I in a relationship or I'm in a situationship? And the difference between those two things, the relationship, your partner is going to prioritize you and give you what you need. If you tell your partner, I need to connect, I need to talk with you, and they're not available emotionally or physically for you, you're in a situationship because they're using you for what they want and need. They're not relating to you and giving you what you need. And, a lot of people just say, yeah, but, it feels good or the sex is great or right. And the sex is wonderful, no doubt. And in a healthy relationship, it should be fantastic and
Yeah.
really almost unlimited because nobody's holding back. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But I think making sure that you schedule and plan time for specific communication. There's nothing wrong if your partner's not available in the moment and off the cuff saying, when can we talk? Let's set a time and create those bonds, those connections, and really increase that secure attachment.
Yeah, and a lot of times people aren't verbally equipped to express what they need to express in the moment. So what I've always recommended to clients is write a letter, whether it's bullet points or whether it's a letter that you want to write out what you're feeling and what you're thinking. Give it to your partner, allow them some time to read it and process it, and then connect and discuss it, because there's such a variety of ways to develop a healthy communication style with your partner, and every couple has to find their own, right? It's not a one size fits all, especially depending on what season you're walking in with your partner, right? You might have little children. Whoever's primary caregiver is not wanting to sit down at 8 o'clock and have a deep discussion. They're whooped. They want to put on mindless TV, maybe have a glass of wine or enjoy a tea and relax and go to bed. They don't want to start talking about heavy items.
Right. Timing is key. I mean, I'm an early riser, and if my wife wants to have a deep conversation with me after 10 p.m. at night or serious, I have to have some espresso, right? I got to be ready because I'm in shutdown mode, and it's hard. You're right, for me to be emotionally available because I've been going all day long. Christy, what about listening versus hearing, or listening to understand versus listening to speak? Let's talk about that dynamic about listening versus hearing. And why is that important to make sure that we're in the right mindset, or we're focused to have the best conversation we can?
Yeah, well, when you're hearing someone, you're there and you're hearing what they're saying. That doesn't mean you're processing it and absorbing it and comprehending it. Listening is very different in the sense that you're giving your full attention. You're open to listening to hear what they are saying, and you're going to paraphrase it back, or what I hear you saying is this. It's a different energy, and it's a different style of what you're actually doing. So you can hear people all day long and you can tune them out. You can hear them, but you don't really know what they're saying. Listening with intention is truly listening to hear and understand what your partner is expressing.
Yeah, it's listening to speak, like you just can't wait to get your words in, and so you're ignoring what's being said to you, and you're really focused more on your opportunity to talk. Or are you listening with the intent, I want to understand?
Mhm.
Because if you reach understanding, then it's the touchdown of communication, right? Because they're going to feel heard, they're going to feel understood, and they're going to feel validated when you can effectively uh, go back and say, so this is what you're feeling, right? And they go, yes,
Yeah,
that, it's happened. And so really it's all about accepting influence, right? And in a relationship, Christy, if we accept influence, that means we are willing to take our spouses or our partner's feelings, emotions, and ideas and valuing them as highly as our own. And
absolutely.
that's not easy to do, is it?
No, it's not always, but you can build the muscle. Shout out to Stacy. I see you, girl. Um, I think too, when we're really listening, we get out of defensive mode. We can actually be emotionally mature and get out of defensive mode and listen, and then pause, and then we can respond, whether it's in that moment or maybe it's a little bit later. But it's building that trust and that security between you and your partner, which is ultimately the goal to and success to a healthy relationship.
Right. I think the Gottman Institute put out a statistic and they said the greatest indicator of the success of any relationship is your and each other's ability to accept influence from your partner. And the couples they studied in the Love Lab, thousands of couples, those partners that were willing to accept influence from the other one were the ones that stayed together and rode through those rough waters. So listening and accepting influence, and that means you're validating your partner as being able to contribute their ideas, their thoughts, their emotions, on different topics in the relationship is huge.
Absolutely. I would say about 75% of women throughout my private practice and all the couples counseling I've had the privilege of doing, 75% at least of women would say, as soon as I don't feel heard, I shut down, and I shut down in every area of our relationship. Um, because they feel disrespected or unwanted or whatever they may feel in the moment. And so when you actually allow your partner to have influence and vice versa, you're opening that bridge, right? So it's a
Mm.
cross reference point that can build for each side, each partner, and then blossom. And the potential is unbelievable for how healthy communication affects your relationship.
Right. So when you say if you're feeling my partner, what we started off with, my partner doesn't listen to me, my partner doesn't hear me, how can I get them to? It's your job to give them the opportunity to, to set the scene, so to speak, and invite them. And then you've also got the job of when you're in that communication, making sure you're being empathetic, that you're responding, that you're giving them what they need to continue talking. It's that empathic listening you're talking about, right? So what I think I heard you say is blank, or this is important to you because it makes you feel this way. And it's being willing to ask those deepening questions, not yes and no questions, so they tell you more and say, so this is important to you because why? Right. So what I can do or what you need from me here is, and that's what the masters of communication do. So it's not just about they're not listening to me. The question is, are you listening to them? Are you setting the scene? And are you being a good listener and making sure you're available emotionally to validate and give them what they need in a conversation?
Yes, and I just have to highlight, I'm looking over here because we're also live on other platforms, so I'm giving Matthew my full attention. I'm looking at him over here too, just in case people are like, "What an oxymoron. You're talking about attentive listening and you're not looking at each other."
I know we got two screens. I do the same things because we're on Instagram and we're on a bunch of other platforms. We have to use two cameras. So we've each got two devices working here so that we can give everybody our best and our highest attention. And you mentioned this earlier, Christine. I want to say what's there's a dangerous thing that you can do, and it's about withholding. You talked about when a woman doesn't feel like she's being heard, she shuts down in every area. And this is not just limited to women or men, right? When we're angry or upset or frustrated or things aren't going well, we can tend to withhold in a relationship. Let's talk about the danger of withholding in any area. You've also heard about withholding from sex, right, and intimacy, but you can withhold from communication. You can be withdrawn. What's the danger of withholding in a relationship, especially on the communication side when we're not getting what we want or we feel hurt or damaged?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of danger in it because it's a slippery slope. I've had clients tell me that they get into bed early and they get wrapped up and they don't let their partner touch them. They don't speak to each other in the morning. And sometimes, a lot of times, they have children in the home watching this. And it's very toxic, and it spirals quickly because the issue of feeling underappreciated or not heard, or maybe like you don't have the room to speak, can be resolved by agreeing to sit down and explore it. But instead, it becomes a wall, and it becomes a very toxic, brick by brick on that wall. It's depleting your relationship. It's going to eat at your marriage or whatever kind of relationship you're in. Uh, Tendency to stray elsewhere, especially for emotional attention, is very high. And it's overall just, it's a dangerous slope because you start thinking the grass is greener. You're building anger and resentment at your partner instead of owning your feelings and saying, listen, I really want to work this out with you. How can we work this out? um, you're also breaking down the foundation of which your relationship's been built on, which is usually, hopefully, trust, honesty, loyalty,
Sure.
and safety, right?
Yeah. I think you're right. And I think the idea is if you're withholding from your partner because you're upset about something, you're depriving you and your partner of the goodness that you each have to offer. And it's not right for a woman to do it, and it's not right for a man to do it. So instead of withholding, the antidote to that is to communicate on a deep and an emotional level and share your feelings. This upset me because I'm concerned about that, right? What are the impacts on you? And talking and working through it, because when you talk and work through something with that quality communication, it brings you closer, it tightens the bond, and it allows you to have that more explosive and wonderful sexual relationship because you're emotionally connected, and
Yeah.
it's fulfilling both of you on that deeper level. I think that's huge. So I want to move on, Christy, a little bit and say, what is a good practice to help create meaningful communication and ensure that both partners are being listened to and heard? Do you have anything? I have an example, but before I dive in, do you have anything that you and Anthony do, or things that you work with your clients? So how can they exercise that muscle to develop to be stronger communicators and create those bonds that we've been talking about?
Yeah, well, to reiterate some of the highlighted points I mentioned, finding your own communication style. There's no one size fits all for each individual, let alone a couple. So finding how you communicate most effectively and efficiently, definitely staying away from the name calling and the degrading kind of communication that can come out when we're feeling angry or hurt or even scared of losing our partner. We've got to have a safe environment to set the tone to know that difficult conversations must be had at times.
Right.
Um, but capping how often you want to have difficult conversations. I've worked with several couples in my over the years where there was one issue that was relentlessly being brought up, and it's like, listen, if you're going to work through this and choose forgiveness, you don't have permission to keep bringing that up at your partner when you're upset, because otherwise, why are you together? I mean, so having some rules and guidelines. One of the things that really works well for my husband and I, and we've come a long way in the 20 years we've been together, is letting each other speak what they need to speak without taking it personally. And that's a skill. That's a skill.
Sure.
However, it's learnable.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm going to share a little technique. I have in my book, Kick Ass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex, which is great for husbands and wives, by the way, not just men, is a chapter called Take Out the Trash. And my wife and I learned this in an enrichment seminar that we did together with a gentleman by the name of Dr. Richard Marks, not the singer, but he's a therapist and a counselor that we work with, and he was incredible. And he said this is called taking out the trash. So what I would like you all to think about doing is sitting knee to knee, eye to eye with your partner, holding hands so there's physical touch. And I want you to take turns speaking. And when you do, you're going to use the acronym MAGS, MAGS. And the M is you're going to share with them if there's anything that you're mad about. It's just a share. And the person that's listening, you can't interrupt. You can ask questions and say, tell me more. How did that make you feel? You can open them up with open-ended questions, but there's no judgment and there's no comment. It's just letting them talk. So the first is M, which is mad. A, is there anything that you're afraid of right now with you, your partner, your kids, your job, anything you've got going on? Is there any fear that's coming in? Because you want to make sure you let your partner know. So mad and afraid. The G, what are you glad or happy about? I'm so glad this happened. I'm so happy about what? And then the S of MAGS, MAGS, is there anything that you're sad or depressed about? Anything that's just weighing heavily on you? And then once you've done that, turn the tables and let your partner go through it again. MAGS. Mad, afraid, glad, and sad. And if you connect just for a couple of minutes, then you're going to get a big invitation into your partner's world and understand where are they emotionally, physically, mentally right now on 4 different levels. And I guarantee you it's going to bring you closer together. And it may allow some of those things that might pop up in life that get you angry or upset and cause you have to have a fierce conversation in the first place. So think about how you can take out the trash and try that MAGS, mad, afraid, glad, and sad in your own relationship. And every time I do it with my wife, we just have a great understanding with each other.
I have to giggle because I'm pretty sure this guy follows me still, which is cool. 20 years later, I dated a guy whose nickname was Mags. So as you're saying Mags, all I can think about is telling my husband about this and how he's going to howl. But it's an amazing tool, and I'm sure it's very effective. I'm going to use it in my own relationship. I think all of these little tools that you have in your book, that we have inside the Kick-Ass Couples Nation private membership, they're tools that you use when you need them. And it's so important that people understand how healthy your own life is when you're in a relationship or relationships that are healthy and vibrant.
Yeah, no doubt. And I want to kind of throw a little personal story in here. The key, if you feel like your partner isn't listening to you, you need to kind of, before you worry about the speck in someone else's eye, you got to look at the beam in your own, to throw a little biblical example there. And one of the challenges I used to have, and occasionally I catch myself on, is when my wife will come to speak to me about something, I'm trying to just fast forward. I'm trying to get to the punchline. Oh, and so what you mean is this, and well, you just want me to do that, because I used to try to make the conversation as short as possible, like cut to the chase, give me the bottom line. And you don't want to do that in your intimate relationship. You want to let them say what they have to say. If it's one word or 500 words, smile, listen, and take it in. And I had a really bad example, and my wife had to put her hand on my shoulder and say, would you just let me say what I want to say without interrupting me? So if you feel like you're not being heard, you need to first make sure that you're letting them be heard and understood. Then that gives you the right to say, hey, we need to talk about something. And you can jump in and have one of those connecting conversations. Christy, you have anything to share about a practice in your own about effective communication with you and Anthony?
Yeah, well, I mean, the main thing that is really important for us, especially because I do so much traveling with my business, is when we're together, we're together. So quality time trumps everything. I have literally scheduled in my calendar my own me time, but also couple time date nights, and where the phone's on do not disturb, unless our son needed us or something, but where I'm fully present and he's fully present, and trying new things so we can build experiences to communicate from. So we're not always having, challenging conversations or talking about finances or goals. We literally can talk about things that bind us together. And I recommend couples do that, explore different parts of yourself and creatively do things that challenge you to grow together as a couple.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, new opportunities. And I think that, we want to throw this out. If anybody has a question that's joining us or with us right now, throw it in the chat, and Christy and I will do our best job to answer it. And if you're not able to answer it live, or you're watching this from a recording, we'd encourage you to send us an email at info@kickasscouplesnation.com. If there's any questions that you have about your partner, about getting them to be better listeners or to have more meaningful dialogue, throw it in the chat, and we'll make sure we answer it before we sign off today.
And hi, Leanne.
Lots of waves and fun people out there. Glad that you guys joined us today. If you're in your relationship and you are not living in your own relationship nirvana, meaning things are going swimmingly and you are satisfied and fulfilled, if you need help, we would love to talk to you. You can go to MatthewPHoffman.com and you can sign up for a free relationship assessment. Get a call and I will join you for absolutely free and talk about what you can do to get into your own relationship nirvana. If you want to hear what the Masters of Relationships do, you can also listen to the Kick-Ass Couples podcast. You'll hear my wife and I. We're coming up on episode 100, but can't believe we've been doing it almost 2 years. But you can listen to Master Relationship, like Christy and Anthony and other kick-ass couples, talk about what they do to keep it honeymoon hot 24/7. So I hope you'll join us. Check us out. Listen to the podcast. We've got great content in Kick-Ass Couples Nations at MatthewPHoffman.com, and we would love to have you join us. We've got a webinar coming up a week after next. You can join us. Check out our post on Instagram, and we have got all kinds of great stuff for you to consume and be with us. Christy is one of our elite relationship coaches. And she's a lot of fun. She's got a lot of experience, a lot of anecdotes, and she is definitely outside the box. In fact, I don't know if she even knows what boxes are because she is so much fun. So we are glad that you joined us today on this Casey and Nooner. We go live every Tuesday. Sometimes it's me. Sometimes I get great guests like Christy and other people. We want to know how we can help you, how we can help you show up. So come on back and join us next time. And remember that happily ever after does not just happen, it's on purpose. We'll see you next time, guys.